Dear colleagues, may I ask you to please take your seats, because I'd like to start in a minute. Thank you. Dear colleagues, I would like to call this final plenary session of our Assembly to order. And to start with, I would like to express our condolences to the Russian Federation for the tragic flood catastrophe in Krasnodar, with already over 150 deaths confirmed. That's a very, very tragic event in one of our member countries, and I would ask you, Mr. Kovalev, to please confer our condolences to the Parliament and to your country. Let me first of all go and see about the agenda, which has been distributed to you. And you all have received the draft agenda, and I would like to ask you whether there are any objections to the draft agenda. This doesn't seem to be the case, so the draft agenda is agreed upon. We also have to hold the general debate today, and therefore I would like to deal with the other agenda items as quickly as possible. And I also would like already now to tell you that we have to limit the speaking time in the general debate to 3 minutes. And as you know, I'm very strict about speaking times because we have to finish our meeting today at 12:30. And I also would like to remind you, colleagues, that the election is open from 9 to 11. So please don't forget, go and vote. It's in a room across the hallway. Thank you very much. One thing I would like to start with is to say that very unfortunately, due to a copying error, pages 12 and 13 are missing from several of the copies of the English version of the draft declaration. There are copies that have pages 12 and 13 and copies that do not. But we have made copies of the missing pages, and they are available at the documents section. This appears to be a problem in the English version only, but if pages are missing from any other, from the French or the Russian version, please indicate so that we can make copies and that they can be distributed as quickly as possible. And now we come to our first point on the agenda, which is the report by our treasurer, and I call upon Mr. Roberto Battelli, the treasurer of our Assembly, to present his report. I'm pleased to tell you that at its meeting on Thursday, the 5th July, the Standing Committee unanimously approved the budget for the next financial year, starting on the 1st of October 2012. Mr. Battelli, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, let me start by thanking also on my behalf the Principality of Monaco for the excellent organization of this event in such a unique place. My full report has been distributed, so I can be very, very brief. And I start by stressing that the Assembly functions in an extremely cost-effective way, but we need the continuous support and solidarity of national delegations to ensure that the Assembly can continue its program of activities and meetings. I reiterate my appreciation to all those member parliaments that have hosted and will host Assembly meetings and events. I take this opportunity to thank the parliaments of Albania, Turkey, and Azerbaijan, which will be hosting our upcoming meetings. And I strongly encourage those parliaments that have not yet hosted the Assembly to do so in the future. I would also like to thank once again the Danish Parliament for its important financial contribution in providing for our offices in Copenhagen and assisting with the payment for technical equipment. And I am also very grateful to the Austrian government, which provides assistance for our liaison office in Vienna. These contributions permit us to stay within budget while also maintaining our level of activities and meetings. My gratitude also on behalf of the Assembly to the Greek Parliament that has provided all the necessary support to President Efthymiou during his mandate. And I hope he will be with us later. Madam Chair, the finances of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly continue to be in good order. We have remained within the approved budget for the last financial year, and we have received once again a positive assessment from our outside independent professional auditor. Thanks to the good management in our International Secretariat, the Assembly continues to operate in a very efficient way with a low budget and an increasing number of activities. I was very pleased that the Standing Committee unanimously approved the proposed budget for our next fiscal year. As you know, it was approved to freeze the Assembly's budget for the coming year. Let me remind you that we have frozen the budget in the last 3 financial years and no increases have been approved since 2008. But let me also be clear, this is the last financial year that we freeze our budget if we at the same time want to retain the same level of activities. Our budget responds to the need for restricted public expenditure in many OSCE parliaments, which reflects the continued effects of the financial crisis we are all passing through. Madam Chair and colleagues, in the annexes to my report, you will also find the list of national contributions for this fiscal year. We have received almost 100% of our annual budget. I take this opportunity to thank all delegations that have made their contribution in due time. In the coming days, I will be writing to all heads of delegations through our Deputy Secretary General, Gustavo Paredes, who assists me in my work, regarding the contribution of our respective parliaments for the coming fiscal year, which runs from 1st of October 2012 to the 30th of September of 2013. Most of our parliaments pay their contribution very promptly, and I am very grateful to them. I hope all will follow their example. Let me conclude by thanking all of you for your continued support and cooperation, and many thanks once again to the National Council of the Principality of Monaco for hosting this annual session. I am ready, dear colleagues, here or any time to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. I think it's always very pleasant when you have such a capable treasurer who can, in a couple of words, explain to you very, very complex budget matters. Thank you very much for that. Are there any questions to our treasurer? This doesn't seem to be the case. Thank you so much. Now I call upon our Secretary General, Mr. Spencer Oliver, to present his report. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Batelli, for your kind remarks about the Secretariat and the work that, that they do. I have a very competent team, and Gustavo Pieras, who's the Deputy Secretary General in charge of many things, but among those is finance, and he works with the Treasurer, with our outside auditors, and with Kurt Larras, who's our Administrative Director, to ensure that, that we manage your money efficiently and that everything is in order at all times. We're very proud of the fact that we've been under budget for 20 straight years and that we've had positive audits throughout that time. I know very few international organizations that could match that record. It's a great pleasure to be in Monaco this year. I think I don't have to say that. You all certainly are aware of that. But I want you to know that the Monegasque hosts have done a terrific job of organizing this assembly. They have made every effort. They have mobilized, I think, half of the population of Monaco to work with us and to help us. And we are very grateful for their hospitality and for their efficiency and for the way in which they have made this assembly a success. It's been a full year since we met in Belgrade last year, and our fall meetings in Dubrovnik were very successful and well attended, as was the winter meeting in Vienna, which is always the event where we interface with the governmental side of the OSCE, and we hear what they do, and we have an opportunity to talk with them and to ask questions. And you also have the opportunity to meet with your permanent representatives on the Permanent Council in Vienna, who do the day-to-day work of the governmental side of the organization. I want to say that in his 2 years, or nearly 2 years as president, Petros Epithemiou of Greece has spread the message of the important work of this assembly at every opportunity. I'd like to thank him personally for his dedicated service. He really has done and did do a great job, and we should all be very grateful for his leadership. I'm also happy to report that we've been carrying out our election monitoring missions very successfully. Parliamentarians have been more active than ever. We have a number of election observations to report on this year, which reports were given in the Standing Committee. We led the election observation in Tunisia, which was a first for one of the partner states, and in Kyrgyzstan, the Russian Federations, Kazakhstan, Armenia, and Serbia. And we have several election observations coming up. We just received an official invitation yesterday for the elections in Belarus. We will also be receiving an invitation to the elections in Georgia, and also the elections in Ukraine in late October, and then the United States on the 6th of November. So we will have a full agenda between now and the winter meeting, including our fall meeting in Tirana, which will be the first time that we have met in Albania, and we very much look forward to that event. Our Secretariat in Vienna continues to function very well, thanks to a great extent to the Danish Parliament. It pays for our premises and provides us with a lot of equipment and great support, and it makes our budget, it makes them our largest single contributor to our budget, and we're very grateful to them, as well as to the Austrian government, who pays half of the cost of our office in Vienna. The Secretariat staff, as you know, is small and efficient. I think we have 11 nationalities who speak about 12 languages. They work very hard. We're particularly proud of our research assistant program. More than 200 young scholars have worked for us now over the past 14 years, and they have gone on to their foreign ministries, to their parliaments, to international organizations, and some of them onto our own staff. It is a great program where it's highly competitive. We always have 5 research assistants in Copenhagen and 3 in Vienna. They're all in their early to mid-20s. They speak several languages. They have master's degrees, usually in international relations. and they work very competently together to do not only our research and preparation for election observation missions, but translations and all sorts of other things that need to be done. And I think it's a good launching pad for people in the field of international affairs, as well as a great contribution to the efficiency of our work. And we're also very proud of our weekly report, The News from Copenhagen, which Neil Simon and Nat Perry put out usually every Wednesday afternoon. It's one page. We know that all of you are so busy you can't really read more than one page and don't have the time to do it. So we try to give you a concise report on what we're doing and what your colleagues are doing in their official capacities in the OSCE. It's become a very widely read communications tool within the OSCE. All of the ambassadors in Vienna read it every Thursday morning before the Permanent Council. It's read in foreign ministries, it's read in media outlets, and it has become, I think, a very effective tool. And Neil and his team have also, as you probably know, greatly improved our website, which has a lot of information on it. And you can go back and find almost anything that we've ever done and much of what you've ever said in that website. So we're very grateful for them, and to Steve and Paul, who manage that website, I think, very, very efficiently. I wanted to thank not only my staff, but also the members of the Bureau and the members of the Standing Committee, the heads of delegation, the secretaries of delegation, who support us so vigorously and thoroughly throughout the year. And without their help and assistance and support and understanding, we wouldn't be able to do the job that we do. So I thank you very much for your support. I enjoy serving as your Secretary General and look forward to having the opportunity to continue to serve you in the future. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oliver. Does anybody have a question to Mr. Oliver's report? That doesn't seem to be the case. Let me, before we go into the Monaco Declaration, remind you that the election is open between 9 and 11. That means that half time already has gone. And it would be really urgent that all those here in the room go and vote before 11 o'clock, because it's a pity if those who are here do not vote. Please go and cast your ballot. Thank you very much. We will now consider the draft Monaco Declaration, which consists of the final resolutions from each of the 3 general committees, together with the supplementary items referred to the general committees, which were considered by the drafting committee yesterday. I would like to thank the drafting committee, which makes an incredible amount of work to get together, put together our declarations after we have changed many of our supplementary items with their amendments. We have already agreed in plenary on the following supplementary items on gender and minorities in the OSCE region, equal participation of women in the OSCE, decision-making, Ukraine, rule of law in Russia, case of Sergei Magnitsky. These supplementary items have already been voted by the plenary. And under paragraph 2 of Rule 39 of our Rules of Procedure, no further amendments can be proposed at this stage. Now we start voting on the Monaco Declaration. Please take out your voting cards. And first of all, we vote on the resolutions passed by each of the 3 general committees. Then we will take the supplementary items that were sent to the committees. In accordance with paragraph 3 of Rule 39, the drafting committee met and produced this draft declaration and draft resolution of the Assembly, as well as the preamble. Lord Bowness was chairing very ably this drafting committee. There are some minor technical changes in the text before you, but there are no changes of substance in anything the drafting committee has done on our behalf yesterday. We'll now vote on the preamble and paragraphs 1 to 26 of the draft declaration. Does anyone want a separate vote on any of these paragraphs? This does not seem to be the case. So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 26. Any objection? No objection, thank you. So paragraphs 1 to 26 have been adopted. We will now vote on paragraphs 27 to 65 of the draft declaration. Does anyone want a separate vote on any of these paragraphs? That does not seem to be the case, so we'll take paragraphs 27 to 65. Any objections? Thank you. Paragraphs 27 to 65 are agreed to. And now we go on voting for paragraph 66 to 106, which is the third committee, to the draft declaration. Does anybody want a separate vote on any of these paragraphs? Yes, Mr. Guminski?
Уважаемая госпожа председатель, я прошу поставить в целом голосование по резолюции третьего комитета на голосование. Спасибо.
That's what I'm doing. We put the paragraphs 66 to 106 en bloc on voting. Yes, we do that. So we'll take paragraph 66 to 106. Are there any objections? Thank you. Then paragraph 66 to 106 are agreed to. I don't understand. I'm sorry. We will now consider the Monaco Declaration as a whole. Are there any objections to the Monaco Declaration as a whole? That does not seem to be the case. The Monaco Declaration is thus adopted. Congratulations to us. We now come to consider the supplementary items from the three general committees. As I said before, we already have adopted in the plenary the items on gender and minorities in the OSCE region, equal participation of women in OSCE decision-making, Ukraine, and rule of law in Russia, case of Sergei Magnitsky. So we will now move straight to the next supplementary item. First supplementary item to consider, strengthening security in the OSCE region. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? We thus vote for paragraph 1 to 18. Are there any objections to paragraphs 1 to 18? That does not seem to be the case. The resolution is agreed to. Next supplementary item, the development of the OSCE cooperation with Afghanistan by 2014 and beyond. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 22. Any objection? No objection, the resolution is agreed to. We now move on to consider the resolution on Moldova. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we will take paragraph 1 to 23. Any objections? Thank you. The resolution is agreed upon. We come to the next supplementary item, which is the OSCE and emerging democracies in the Arab world. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 26. Any objections to the resolution? The resolution is adopted. We now come to the supplementary item on Iran's nuclear program. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 13. Any objections? The resolution is adopted. We now come to the supplementary item on the situation in Georgia. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? We'll take paragraphs 1 to 10. Any objections? The resolution is adopted. The next supplementary item is on enhancing cross-border cooperation policies in post-conflict scenarios. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraph 1 to 18. Any objections? Thank you. The resolution is agreed upon. We now come to the supplementary item Helsinki plus 40. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? We'll take the paragraphs 1 to 9. Any objections? No objections. Thank you. The resolution is agreed upon. And now we come to the supplementary item countering violent extremism and radicalization that leads to terrorism. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? I don't see any objections. We'll take paragraphs 1 to 20. Any objections? No objections. The resolution is agreed upon.
It's this one.
Sorry. The next supplementary item, which is the impact of small states in the OSCE, is missing in the Russian version of the declaration, but there are extra copies printed up. So we now come to consider the supplementary item, the impact of small states in the OSCE. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? I don't see any objections. So we'll take paragraph 1 to 9. Any objections? So the resolution is agreed upon. We now come to the supplementary item, support for the United Nations Global Counter-Terrorism Strategy. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 22. Any objections? I don't see any. The resolution is agreed upon. The next supplementary item is on promotion and use of new and renewable sources of energy. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 25. Any objections? Thank you. The resolution is agreed upon. The next supplementary item is on sharing experience in reclaiming water resources in order to strengthen global food security. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 16. Any objection? No objection. The resolution is agreed upon. The next supplementary item is on assistance for children in the aftermath of crisis situations. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 14. Any objections? Thank you. The resolution is adopted. And now we take the supplementary item on freedom of movement in the OSCE region. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 12. Are there any objections? Thank you. The resolution is agreed upon. The next supplementary item is on protecting vulnerable populations from human trafficking. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 15. Any objections? The resolution is agreed upon. And now we come to the supplementary item on Belarus. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? Mr. Guminski, you have asked the floor.
Уважаемая госпожа председатель, я прошу слова для выступления. Уважаемый председатель, уважаемые коллеги, эта резолюция уже обсуждалась нами в Третьем комитете, и мы высказали свое принципиальное отношение к ней. Делегация Беларуси ее категорически не поддерживает. Данная резолюция никакой дополнительной стоимости не несет. Она не конструктивная и не объективная. Более того, она дает ложный посыл международному сообществу накануне парламентских выборов в нашей стране. К сожалению, в ходе обсуждения проекта резолюции в комитете нас не услышали. И это несмотря на то, что данный проект по Беларуси изобилует неточностями и откровенным передергиванием фактов. А целый ряд рекомендаций, как мы слышали, представляются, мягко говоря, сомнительными даже автором проекта резолюции. Подчеркиваю, угрозы, ультиматумы и санкции не вписываются в принципы и методы работы ОБСЕ. Никогда и никому они не приносили желаемых результатов.
I'm sorry. The resolution has been discussed in the third committee, and you absolutely have the possibility of voting against it. I'm sorry, we cannot open again the discussion on the resolution because we are right now in the voting process. You have the right to raise a point of order, and you obviously can very well vote against it, but we cannot start a discussion on the substance. So I must ask you to refrain from discussing the substance. Thank you so much.
Спасибо, госпожа председатель. Я как раз это и собирался сделать. И призывать Ассамблею проявить мудрость и не принимать эту резолюцию. Тем самым мы продемонстрируем настоящую заинтересованность в диалоге и сотрудничестве. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you, Mr. Guminski. I'm sorry. So we will vote on the resolution separately. Who is in favor of the resolution on Belarus? Please show. Against? (16) Against. Abstentions? 4. Four abstentions. That means that the resolution is adopted. We now go to the resolution, to the supplementary item on addressing racism and xenophobia affecting people of African descent in the OSCE region. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? Thank you. So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 18. Any objections? No objections. The resolution is carried. We now go to supplementary item extraordinary rendition investigations. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 23. Any objections? Thank you. The resolution is agreed upon. The next supplementary item is on improving election observation in the OSCE participating states. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 8. Any objections? Thank you. The resolution is carried. We now come to the last supplementary item to consider, which is transnational fugitive offenders. Is the Assembly content to consider the resolution as a whole? So we'll take paragraphs 1 to 11. Any objections? Thank you. The resolution is agreed to. That concludes our proceeding on the Monaco Declaration and resolutions. No, we have voted for the whole as the Monaco Declaration, and the supplementary items have been considered each by itself, which is also comes out clear in the Monaco Declaration. So this is adopted. Thank you so much. We now come to our general debate. But first, on topical and miscellaneous issues. The list of speakers is closed. How many? 20 members have indicated that they wish to speak in this debate. Since the closing time for our meeting is 12:30, and we need to hear our election results before them, I have decided to limit the speaking time to 3 minutes, and I'm going to apply it very, very strictly. And I have decided on the order of our speakers based on the following considerations: a fair distribution of countries and gender balance. In this way, I hope to allow as many as possible to speak. Speeches must be relevant to the areas of responsibility and objectives of the Assembly, as set out in Rule 2 and the rules of procedure. And before opening the debate, I want to remind you that you have 45 minutes left to vote for the offices, for the vice presidents. And so please go and vote before 11 o'clock. Thank you very much. And now I open the debate, and the first to take the floor is Mrs. Doris Barnett, to be followed by Mr. Ilkka Kanerva. Mrs. Barnett, you have the floor.
Ja, vielen Dank, Frau Vorsitzende. Liebe Kolleginnen, liebe Kollegen, ich weiß nicht, wie es Ihnen gestern in der Plenarsitzung ergangen ist. Die Debatten um die Ukraine und den Magnitsky-Fall hinterließen bei mir einen bitteren Beigeschmack. Ich habe mich nicht sehr wohl gefühlt. Man hat das Gefühl, es gibt von vornherein einen Unterlegenen und er versucht sich dann im Laufe der Debatte zu rechtfertigen. Ich fürchte, wenn wir diese Arbeitsweise beibehalten, werden sich manche Staaten zurückziehen. Und ich möchte das ehrlich gesagt nicht. Ich möchte, dass wir alle beisammen bleiben, dass wir alle weiter mit unserer Arbeit Fortschritte machen. Aber es kann natürlich auch nicht sein, dass hier jedes gesprochene Wort in Arbeitsgruppen sofort an die Regierung weitergemeldet wird. Das ist kein Weg, wie man Vertrauen und gegenseitigen Respekt schafft. Aber Vertrauen und Respekt ist die Grundvoraussetzung für unsere Arbeit hier. Deswegen würde ich mich sehr freuen, wenn wir mit unserem neuen Präsidenten über die Struktur unserer Arbeitsweise nachdenken und vielleicht es schaffen, neue Wege zu finden, neue Arbeitsmethoden zu finden, mit denen wir zum Beispiel mit den betroffenen Staaten, besonders mit den Kollegen aus den betroffenen Staaten zusammenarbeiten, Fragen aufarbeiten können, auch hinreisen können, Fact-Finding-Missions vor Ort machen können, einfach um dann eine ausgewogene, wo auch die betroffenen Staaten sich wohler fühlen, selbst wenn sie nicht mit allem einverstanden sind, aber dass sie das Gefühl haben, sie werden gefragt, man hört ihnen zu. Nur so, denke ich, können wir in unserer Versammlung dann auch tatsächlich Fortschritt erreichen. Und wir wollen doch etwas erreichen. Wir als Parlamentarische Versammlung müssen uns doch abheben, selbstständig sein. Wir sind nicht der verlängerte Arm unserer Regierung. Bitte, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, helfen Sie mit, dass wir zusammenbleiben, dass wir gute Arbeit für unsere Bürgerinnen und Bürger, die wir hier vertreten, machen können. Vielen Dank.
Vielen Dank, Frau Barnett, für Ihre Worte. And now I call upon my colleague from Finland, Ilkka Kanerva, who is going to be followed by Mr. Juku-Kalle from Estonia. Mr. Kanerva, you have the floor.
Thank you, our loved chairperson. So, during our debates at this session, quite many speakers have compared the threat of cyber warfare with that of nuclear weapons and seen it is equally revolutionary. This is, of course, an extravagant view. The use of nuclear weapons would take mankind back to the Stone Age. If we would have to renounce from the use of information technology, this would mean a return back to 60s. Cybersecurity should be viewed and analyzed from a comprehensive viewpoint. It is important to take into account all actors at state level and the economic sector as well. Although there is no concrete threat of cyber war, we urgently need to raise a level of cybersecurity. The events of the Arab Spring have alarmed some governments, and this has led to increased activities in international organizations, as we have seen also here in our assembly. I agree on this point, but do
we wish to water down existing international norms, such as those agreed upon in Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. International cooperation is important also in this field in order to make sure that we don't jeopardize our common values of freedom of expression and human rights. There are many countries that may have a greater role in the field of cybersecurity than their size would suggest. I'm referring here to the process related to the confidence-building measures within the OSCE. This is a process that may hold a key to the problems related to norms that other international organizations face when dealing with cybersecurity issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Juku-Kalle Rait from Estonia, who will be followed by Mr. Akhtar Chaudhry from Norway. Mr. Rait, you have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank everybody in this pretty hall and from Estonian delegation. And I must repeat, as I have repeated to my colleagues, that I'm really glad that we were talking about the Magnitsky case in Russia. Because this problem is not only a problem of corruption or state mafia. This isn't a problem of just one person, but the roots of it are much more deeper. Well, I must point out the problems of elementary rights of whole groups of nations in Russia. In recent years, actually, right after the collapse of Soviet Union, Russia has acquired unpleasant habit of issuing diplomatic notes or comments to its immediate or more distant neighbors. Russia is mostly accusing the other countries of discrimination against its so-called compatriots abroad, as well as of 100 other sins. But let us take a brief look to small nations who are living in Russia. The annual meeting of the OSCE would be a good place to refresh our memory on what is happening to the small, indigenous nations there. And I'm talking about the smallest ones, Finno-Ugric nations, whose situation in Russia is worsening year by year. In fact, that they are systematically driving themselves towards extinction. The Finno-Ugric nations are the small nations related linguistically to Hungarians, Finns, and Estonians who live in Russia and whose numbers are plummeting drastically. Several once strong nations have simply almost died out. And they are really tiny ones, because we're talking nations about 1,000 people, or some of them are 2,000 or 4,000, and so on. And if we're talking about Russia with 140 million people, it is quite ridiculous to think that they can be so-called dangerous to Russia or its culture or language. And it would be extremely absurd to say that small nation dies out by its own accord. It's not the case. In Russia, this is caused by so-called education system or lack of education system. It means that often even most elementary school books doesn't exist. They are not allowed to print. Schools are closed. And the intelligentsia of the small nations who care even a little bit of their ethnic community is frequently persecuted. The simplest form of this is dismissal from work, but there have been cases of brutal violence. And I'm not talking even about free media or something normal standards. There are about 20 little Finno-Ugric nations, and they cannot survive this situation much more longer. So let us take the official Russian statistics from the last census, the data published about a year ago. In addition, the dwindling population, the rapid decline in speakers of Finno-Ugric languages has become catastrophic. I take the Russian official statistics. Over the past 8 years, Mari language speakers have decreased by 19%, Khanty 30%, Nenets 51%, and Karelian speakers 70% less. It means in this year there's an international worldwide Finno-Ugric Congress in Budapest in Hungary. I hope that OSCE people find time to come there and get acquainted to the problem, because small nations are waiting for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Our next speaker is Mr. Akhtar Chowdhury from Norway, and he will be followed by Mr. Ikram Adirbekov from Kazakhstan. My Norwegian friend, you have the floor.
Good morning, dear colleagues. While we are discussing a region in change, we ought to reflect on what is happening in Syria. Firstly, because we are talking about fellow human beings. People are being killed both by the regime and by militia groups opposing the regime. Secondly, because Syria has a common border with an OSCE member state, namely Turkey. Turkey has been hit by the Syrian aggression when a plane from its air force was shot down by Syrian regime. Turkey is now making a tremendous effort to help the victims who are fleeing a conflict which bears resemblance to a civil war. I would like to praise the Turkish hospitality shown to the refugees and their patience with the Syrian armed forces. Thirdly, I will dare, ladies and gentlemen, to say that in a few years, maybe months, many of us will feel ashamed and blame ourselves for not being able to stop the killings. It will be a similar feeling to the one we have today regarding Bosnia-Herzegovina and genocide in Srebrenica, as well as the mass killings in Rwanda, Sri Lanka, and Kurdish areas under Saddam Hussein. So, dear colleagues, we have to find out how we can stop the killings of innocent Syrian people today. We need to put the sanctity of human life before our short-term and national interests. History will judge us, and history is a brutal judge. We parliamentarians must start to influence our own governments, particularly representatives of the nations which has permanent seats in the United Nations Security Council. The time is working against us. Innocent people, women and children are being killed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chaudhry. I'm sorry to say I understand that some colleagues are still asking the floor, but the speakers list has been closed already yesterday because we should have started the general debate yesterday. I'm sorry, you are a little bit late, colleague. I'm sorry for that. I now give the floor to Mr. Ikram Adirbekov from Kazakhstan, and after him we have Mr. Pierluigi Mantini from Italy.
Спасибо, госпожа председатель. Уважаемые коллеги, прежде всего, от имени казахстанской делегации хотел бы поблагодарить власти Монако и Международный секретариат парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ за приглашение и замечательную организацию ежегодной сессии. В ходе работы сессии многие участники выразили свою обеспокоенность событиями, происходящими в течение последних лет на южном побережье Средиземного моря и на Ближнем Востоке. Насилие и конфронтация в этом регионе свидетельствуют о насущной необходимости обеспечения всеобъемлющего подхода к вопросам безопасности, стабильности, толерантности и межкультурного и межрелигиозного диалога. Как вы знаете, тематика толерантности была в центре внимания председательства Казахстана ОБСЕ в 2010 году. В Астанинской юбилейной декларации саммита ОБСЕ отмечены призывы глав государств и правительств к наращиванию усилий по утверждению свободы религий и убеждений и по борьбе с нетерпимостью и дискриминацией. Недавно наша столица вновь стала местом проведения очередного крупного мероприятия в области толерантности. 30-31 мая в Астане состоялся съезд лидеров мировых и традиционных религий. Данный съезд стал 4-м по счету с 2003 года и проводился на тему «Мир и согласие как выбор человечества». В мероприятии приняли участие, надо сказать, более 80 делегаций из 40 стран мира. В работе съезда принимали участие 3 личных представителя, действующий председатель ОБСЕ по вопросам толерантности и недискриминации, раввин Эндрю Бейкер, судья Кэтрин Маккинес и посол Адил Ахметов, представляющий также парламентскую ассамблею ОБСЕ. От ОБСЕ также был представлен директор ВДИПЧ, посол Яниш Ленарчиш. Пользуясь случаем, хотел поблагодарить их за активное участие в дискуссиях и конструктивные предложения в ходе работы съезда. Важным итогом 4-го съезда стало принятие итогового документа, обращение участников, в котором была подчеркнута важная роль диалога между религиями и культурами, направленного на укрепление взаимного уважения, взаимопонимания и сотрудничества между последователями различных религий, народов и государств во имя общего блага человечества. Участники выразили свою поддержку Совету религиозных лидеров, учрежденному по итогам работы данного съезда. Совет, состоящий из 15 членов, лидеров основных традиционных религий, будет играть важную роль в исполнении принятых решений съезда, а также в имплементации его решений. Следующий съезд лидеров мировых и традиционных религий состоится через 3 года, как раз в год 40-летия Хельсинского заключительного акта. В заключение хотел бы еще раз отметить, что Казахстан выступает за развитие межцивилизационного, межкультурного и межрелигиозного диалога в регионе ОБСЕ и предлагает определить вопросы толерантности и терпимости в качестве одной из приоритетов гуманитарного измерения деятельности ОБСЕ. В этой связи рекомендуем рассмотреть возможность принятия документа по тематике толерантности на предстоящем совещании министров иностранных дел стран-участниц ОБСЕ в Дублине. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, dear colleague. I now call upon Mr. Pierluigi Mantini to be followed by Mr. Emin Onen from Turkey. Mr. Mantini, you have the floor.
Grazie Presidente, esprimo grande soddisfazione per questa nostra sessione di lavori di Monaco e per i suoi risultati. Credo che i colleghi del Principato di Monaco, che hanno così bene organizzato i lavori, ci abbiano mostrato anche una volta in più quanto in un piccolo Stato come il Principato di Monaco possano stare tante cose, tanti valori, tante bellezze, tanti elementi, e così è anche il mondo, che è sempre più piccolo, è sempre più piccolo. Perciò noi dobbiamo credere di più alla nostra organizzazione dell'OSCE e di meno al nostro ruolo di rappresentanti di governi statali. Abbiamo bisogno di avere meno interessi statali nazionali e più interessi alla cooperazione se vogliamo governare la finanza, e sono emerse indicazioni importanti dalla risoluzione di Tony Lloyd, arricchita dal lavoro di tutti i colleghi. Se vogliamo arrivare ad alcuni obiettivi come la disciplina delle agenzie di rating e le misure contro la speculazione finanziaria, se vogliamo rilanciare la green economy e anche l'economia della conoscenza, se vogliamo una economia di mercato responsabile, un'economia sociale di mercato, con al centro i valori della persona. E anche l'altro grande tema dei diritti umani e della democrazia, con le mozioni sull'Ucraina, la Bielorussia, il caso Magnitsky, dimostrano che occorre una organizzazione cooperativa. Non dobbiamo sentire questi casi come esempi ostili nei confronti di qualche paese. Io invito apertamente tutti i colleghi a ingerire, all'ingerenza. Anche in Italia ci sono casi giudiziari che meritano attenzione, o ci sono situazioni di debolezza di diritti umani, e quindi questo processo deve riguardare tutti i paesi, ma noi dobbiamo sempre di più fare un grande gioco di squadra, cedere un po' di egoismo nazionale e agire come organizzazione sovranazionale. Sono certo che dopo l'ottima presidenza di Petrošev mio, che saluto, la nuova presidenza dell'OSCE aiuterà questo nostro gioco di squadra. Grazie.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. I now pass the floor to Mr. Emin Onen, and he is going to be followed by Mrs. Arta Dade from Albania.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dear colleagues, as you all know, terrorism has no religion, race, or ethnicity. Actually, it's a crime against humanity. Turkey is determined to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. We are all obliged to fight against this common scourge. We also regard violent extremism and organized crime as leading trends in today's global security environment. Countering these challenges is a shared responsibility for the international community. Likewise, terrorist attacks emanating from xenophobia, like the one that took place in Norway, also merit close attention. The international community also needs to stand up against this increasingly visible threat. The recently discovered underground network in Germany, which murdered foreigners, including 8 people of Turkish descent, has highlighted the real and imminent threat posed by xenophobic terrorist organizations and their activities. Furthermore, the increasing trend of the right-wing extremism in Europe and those who subscribe to and promote these ideas further deepens our concern. In fact, some responsible European politicians have also recently drawn attention to this dangerous trend. These examples point to the fact that even the most developed democracies are confronted with the challenge of terrorism. We should always recall that no country is immune from terrorism and violent extremism. Cognizant of the need for a strong international cooperation against terrorism and violent extremism, Turkey joins all the international efforts to this end. With this understanding, Turkey with the US has assumed the co-chairmanship of the Global Counterterrorism Forum that had been launched in September 2011. We see this forum as a further important step to foster and deepen international cooperation in the fight against terrorism and violent extremism. The ministerial plenary of the GCTF that was held in Istanbul on the 7th of June has demonstrated that the GTF has this potential. Let me now to say a few words about our experience in the fight against terrorism. Turkey is directly targeted by various terrorist organizations, notably by the PKK terrorist organization. We have accumulated many best practices and come to learn that security measures alone are not sufficient to address this threat. Therefore, we have been implementing a comprehensive and multifaceted approach in the fight against the PKK. In this approach, security components is supplemented by political, social, cultural, and economic steps. We are currently working on drafting a new constitution in our parliament. We expect this work to be instrumental in further enhancing democratic standards and freedoms in Turkey. However, as a terrorist organization and by its very nature, the PKK wish to undermine democratic process within Turkey. Its natural reflex in the face of democratic process is to resort to violence. It continues to claim innocent lives. At such an important juncture in our fight against PKK, we expect the support of our partners and allies. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Onen. I now would like to give the floor to Mrs. Ahtadade. I don't think that she is here. Then the floor would go to Mr. Salim Zoda Olim from Tajikistan. He isn't here either. He is here, I'm sorry. Good. You have the floor, sir, I'm sorry.
Уважаемый председатель, дамы и господа, все мы знаем, как важно развивать возобновляемые источники энергии, особенно экологические источники энергетики, наподобие гидроэлектростанций. Республика Таджикистан очень привержен к этим ценностям, и у нас нет других источников энергии, то есть у нас нет углеводородного сырья. В связи с этим у Таджикистана нет другого пути, как развивать и строить ГЭСи. Таджикистан обладает 60% запасами воды в Центральной Азии, а использует на свои нужды всего лишь 11%. Остальное используется нашими соседями. Однако позиция нашего соседа Узбекистана, блокирующего наше суверенное право, очень удручает, учитывая, что у нас острая нехватка электричества в зимнее время. В сельских районах Таджикистана электричество подается всего несколько часов, тогда как температура зимой у нас может достигнуть минус 20-30 градусов Цельсия. Несмотря на такую трагическую ситуацию в Таджикистане, мировое сообщество воздерживается повлиять на Узбекистан и его непонятную политику. Проблема заключается в том, что, дорогие коллеги, Таджикистан хочет построить Рагунский ГЭС, чтобы решать свои энергетические проблемы, однако Узбекистан препятствует этому, используя разные политические и даже экономические рычаги, не брезгуя просто рычагами экономической блокады. Свои действия Узбекистан обосновывает, что река Вахш, на которой строится Рагунская ГЭС, является якобы трансграничной. Всем известны сидящие образованные люди. И если вы посмотрите на карту региона, то сами убедитесь, река Вахш является внутренней рекой и составляет всего лишь 20% трансграничного бассейна. Вода – это не нефть и не газ, которая под землей и может находиться там сколько угодно. А эта река, ее невозможно блокировать и не пропускать дальше. Следовательно, мы не можем ее сдержать у себя как в кармане, и она все равно будет течь дальше. Однако, давайте вернемся к фактам. Рагунская ГЭС была спроектирована узбекскими специалистами в Узбекском гидропроектном институте в Ташкенте еще во времена Советского Союза. Тогда почему-то не было речи о неустойчивости плотины и к землетрясениям. Это еще один из недоуменных аргументов Узбекистана против этой ГЭС. Но в Таджикистане успешно функционирует уже на протяжении более 30 лет плотина Нурекский ГЭС, которая является одним из самой высокой плотиной в мире. Также есть Нукусское соглашение от 1992 года, где Узбекистан дал письменное согласие, то есть невозражение строительства Рагунских ГЭС. Однако Узбекистан и те, кто пытается поддержать его, не хочет вспоминать об этом соглашении. Здесь международное сообщество должно сказать высокое слово права и закона и приверженности подписанным соглашениям, а также к проекту, разработанным теми, кто сейчас выступает против. Несмотря на это, Таджикистан обратился к Всемирному банку провести ТО и экологическую экспертизу, чтобы засертифицировать безвредность наших намерений, и данный ГЭС Всемирный банк завершит данные исследования к февралю 2013 года. Недоумение вызывает позиции мирового сообщества и особенно наших стратегических союзников. Прошу международное сообщество разобраться с беззаконием и дать оценку, ибо от экономической блокады и отсутствия электричества страдает не только скудная промышленность Таджикистана, но, к сожалению, простой народ, который и так живет в тяжелых условиях. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. I now pass the floor to Mr. Oleg Bilorus, to be followed by Mrs. Uta Zapf. Mr. Bilorus, you have the floor.
Госпожа председатель, уважаемые коллеги-парламентарии, позвольте мне еще раз выразить сердечную благодарность принцу-суверену Монако, правительству и народу этой малой, но великой цивилизованной страны за блестящее проведение нынешней 21-й сессии Парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ. В 2015 году Европейское и мировое сообщество будут отмечать 40-летие создания ОБСЕ, этой глобальной теперь организации безопасности. Несмотря на проблемы и трудности в деятельности ОБСЕ, несмотря на некоторый и даже растущий пессимизм относительно ее возможностей и будущего, можно с полной уверенностью заявить, в целом этот важнейший уникальный проект международной солидарности XX века оказался успешным. Этот успех будет возможным и в 21 веке, если европейскому и мировому сообществу удастся более полно реализовать главный императив 21 века – безопасность глобального, регионального и национального развития через эффективное сотрудничество, через формирование новых систем коллективной безопасности. Тем, кто сомневается в будущем ОБСЕ как глобальной международной организации, по укреплению безопасности и сотрудничества, следует ответить на один вопрос. Каким бы был мир без ОБСЕ сегодня, и что бы случилось, если бы завтра ОБСЕ прекратила свою деятельность? Вместе с тем, как мы видим, возможны как успехи, как прогресс, так и откаты, реверс и даже деградация безопасности, развития, особенно в области человеческого измерения. Все зависит от успешного решения неотложных задач в области нового глобального человека. Необходимо нам всем вместе задуматься и провести глубокий анализ и оценку успехов и неудач нашей организации. И первая попытка такого анализа и разработки стратегии была предпринята, как известно, в Астане на саммите. Очевидно, было бы уместно, чтобы парламенты стран-членов ОБСЕ приняли в этой работе самое активное участие, представляя свои интересы своих народов, и они наиболее объективно могут дать и оценку, и сформулировать интересы и стратегические направления по дальнейшему развитию ОБСЕ и безопасного мира. Я вношу предложение создать на базе нашей ассамблеи группу мудрецов, которая бы смогла разработать и внести на наше рассмотрение конкретные предложения. Благодарю вас за внимание.
Thank you, Mr. Bilorus. Before giving the floor to Mrs. Zapf, I would like to remind you that voting closes at 11 o'clock. So you have 15 minutes left. If you have not voted yet, please go and cast your ballots. And now I give the floor to Mrs. Zapf, to be followed by Mr. D'Amico from Italy.
Herzlichen Dank, Frau Vorsitzende. Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, ich denke, wir haben volle Tage erlebt mit großen Diskussionen, die auch wichtige Themen aufgegriffen haben. Und viele Beiträge, auch bei den Resolutionen, sind zu Recht um Menschenrechte gegangen. Das war ein wichtiges Thema bei dieser Konferenz. Ich möchte mich aber auch sehr deutlich bedanken bei dem Kollegen Gardetto, der für das Zustandekommen des Panels des Mittelmeerforums verantwortlich war. Dieses Forum hat uns wichtige Zukunftsaufgaben aufgezeigt. Ebenso die Debatte zu Afghanistan nach 2014. Hier ist auch für die OSZE noch viel zu tun. Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, weniger im Mittelpunkt hat gestanden etwas, was auch der Kollege Bilorus gerade eben erwähnt hat, nämlich die Strengthening Security in the OSCE Supplementary Item. Dies, denke ich, könnte ein Thema sein, das auch noch mal in Tirana im Mittelpunkt stehen könnte. Denn was wir, denke ich, ein bisschen aus den Augen verloren haben, ist dieser sehr wichtige Korfu-Prozess, der bis 2010, bis Astana, intensiv diskutiert worden ist. Aber irgendwie, nachdem der Aktionsplan nun nicht bestätigt wurde, damals wieder ein bisschen aus dem Blick geraten ist. Dennoch, denke ich, braucht er unsere Aufmerksamkeit, gerade von Parlamentariern. Unsere Regierungen bekümmern sich allerdings bereits darum, aber ich glaube, das ist ziemlich unbemerkt. Die Vision einer euroasiatischen Sicherheitsgemeinschaft wurde im Abschlussdokument von Astana genannt, und aufgrund dieses Tatbestandes gibt es eine deutsch-französisch-polnische-russische Initiative, die mehrere Diskussionsveranstaltungen über dieses Jahr hinweg gemacht hat. Eine steht noch bevor. Und da ist eigentlich gar keine parlamentarische Begleitung dabei, was ich ausgesprochen bedauere. IDEA, so heißt diese Initiative, die eben sich darum bekümmert, herauszufinden, wie eine zukünftig euroatlantische Sicherheitsstruktur aussehen kann, bezieht wissenschaftlichen Beistand ein. Mehrere wissenschaftliche Institute aus den genannten Ländern bemühen sich darum. Das Ziel ist es, in Dublin 2012 Empfehlungen zu formulieren. Und ich denke, wir sollten bei der Formulierung dieser Empfehlungen auch parlamentarisch dabei sind. Ich mache einen Vorschlag, vielleicht kann das in der Zukunft jetzt mal diskutiert werden, dass wir dieses Thema aufgreifen und in Tirana es auch inhaltlich genau durchdiskutieren. Ich fände, das würde uns gut anstehen. Es geht um Abrüstung, es geht um Vertrauensbildung, es geht um Rüstungskontrolle, es geht um den Erhalt der bestehenden Abkommen. Und ich glaube, es wäre gut, wenn wir als Parlamentarier dort mitreden würden.
Vielen Dank, liebe Frau Kollegin. The floor now goes to Mr. Claudio D'Amico, to be followed by our Turkish friend, Mr. Ruhi Acıgoz. Mr. D'Amico, you have the floor.
Grazie Presidente. Io parlerò di come noi agiamo all'interno della nostra Assemblea, perché in base a come noi agiamo non possiamo poi comportarci in un modo diverso al di fuori. E mi riferisco in primo luogo alle missioni di osservazione elettorale, quando noi andiamo a dire come si deve votare agli altri. Perché ieri c'è stata una votazione, l'unica alla quale ha partecipato un candidato alternativo a quello dei gruppi maggiori di potere che controllano politicamente questa Assemblea. Ecco, in questa elezione c'è stato la mancanza del criterio fondamentale che noi andiamo a chiedere quando facciamo le missioni elettorali, quello della segretezza del voto, perché i delegati che votavano erano obbligati a passare davanti a tutti, davanti al tavolo, non avevano la possibilità di andare a votare di nascosto e tutti hanno visto il loro voto. Chi stava seduto sul tavolo lo vedeva, anch'io passando ho visto il voto di tanti altri che erano attorno a me, non c'era possibilità di votare in segreto. È una cosa vergognosa, l'ho detto lì e nessuno mi ha risposto. Quindi noi non possiamo permetterci di andare a dire agli altri quando giriamo i paesi OSCE che sbagliano a fare le elezioni, quando siamo i primi all'interno della nostra Assemblea parlamentare che non rispettiamo i criteri che noi pretendiamo che gli altri rispondano. Primo. Secondo, quando si parla di discriminazioni, c'è tanta gente, e mi riferisco sempre a questo Olimpo di persone che crede di essere Dio per le sue idee e che continua a portarci risoluzioni su discriminazione e xenofobia, ma poi agisce in modo diverso. Anche qui ho sentito voci di corridoio che sono state dette nei corridoi ieri prima di quella votazione con frasi pesantissime nei confronti di uno dei due candidati, il candidato che era alternativo a questo Olimpo che si permette di lanciare come lanciava Zeus delle saette contro chi non è passato come referenza a chiedere il permesso di candidarsi a qualcuno. Allora questi poteri politici ci sono in un'assemblea parlamentare, ci possono essere, i gruppi più piccoli come Forum of Identities sono al di fuori da questi gruppi, da questi poteri politici e possono esserci, però non accetto la discriminazione nei confronti di un candidato perché chi parla e continua a portare in approvazione documenti e si sciacqua la bocca con l'antidiscriminazione, l'antirazzismo, poi agisce all'interno dell'Assemblea su chi la pensa in modo diverso in questo modo. Qui c'è una discriminazione mentale, cioè non per il colore della pelle, ma per come alcune persone pensano, e questo non deve esserci nella nostra Assemblea, perché ognuno deve essere libero di pensare quello che vuole, di potersi candidare a qualsiasi carica senza che si vadano a prendere i delegati facendo frasi pesantissime prima di un'elezione per cercare di condizionare il loro voto. Grazie.
Thank you, Mr. D'Amico. Now I pass the floor to our Turkish friend, Mr. Ruhi Acıgoz, and he will be followed by Mr. Zafar Ali Gulov from Tajikistan. Dear colleague, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, dear colleagues, first of all, I want to thank our Swedish colleague for his statements about Syria. Norway colleague. I will also take your attention to the grave situation in Syria, which does not give much room for optimism. Actually, we are deeply concerned at the dangerous intensification of armed violence across Syria against the civilian population over the past several days. Armed violence has reached an alarming level, compelling the UN supervision mission in Syria to suspend its activities as of 16th of June. The government's intensive military operation continued to result in heavy civilian casualties and gross human rights violations. Mass massacres against civilians continued unbeaten. We do believe that the international community has a joint moral responsibility to avoid reoccurrence of massacres against civilians and to ensure that perpetrators of such inhuman acts are brought to justice. The current level of violence against civilians underlines the urgent need to immediately initiate a democratic transition process on the basis of legitimate demands of the people. Furthermore, we are strongly condemning that a Turkish RF-4 type military aircraft, which was on a test and training mission, was shot down by the Syrian forces on 22 June while flying solo and without arms, and 2 pilots were murdered. Although the aircraft displayed no hostile attitude or maneuver and was flying in the international airspace of Eastern Mediterranean with its identification system open, the Syrian forces did not hesitate to shoot at our aircraft. I would like to underline that the situation in Syria is alarming. The psyche of the regime is highly dangerous. This recent hostile acts towards a Turkish aircraft is a vivid proof. They don't even hesitate to provoke neighbors through such attacks. And it is a clear fact that the longer this regime stays in power in Syria, the more stability and security of the region will be in jeopardy. Besides, the ongoing escalation of violence in Syria has led to a grave humanitarian crisis. The assessment report prepared by the UN OSCE assessment mission to Syria identified 1 million Syrian people in need of urgent humanitarian assistance. There have been certain initiatives that gave us glimmers of hope, but regretfully, one cannot possibly suggest that severity of the crisis has diminished. Once again, we urge the Syrian government to fully cooperate with the UN and ensure unhindered humanitarian access. Last but not least, everybody acknowledges that the international community should be united behind the plan of action and transition in order to overcome the crisis in Syria. If we do not genuinely unite behind the one process and act and speak with one voice, the Syrian regime would be encouraged to commit more massacres at greater scales in the prevalent atmosphere of impunity. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, sir. I now call upon Mr. Zafar Ali Gulov from Tajikistan to be followed by Mr. Gegamian from Armenia. Mr. Gulov, you have the floor.
Уважаемый госпожа председатель, уважаемые коллеги, вам хорошо известно, что Таджикистан продолжает оставаться буферным прочным заслоном на пути беспокоящихся всех нас наркоугрозы. Мы хотим видеть наших соседних стран экономически самостоятельными и нейтральными странами, свободными от подобных недугов. И выражаем удовлетворение по поводу усилий международного сообщества в нашем регионе, нацеленных на установление мира, стабильности и безопасности, к чему с самого начала призвал Таджикистан с высоких международных трибун. Республика Таджикистан поддерживает развитие в рамках Парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ межцивилизационного диалога, который призван способствовать развитию толерантности и сохранению культурного разнообразия, ведения политического диалога. Мы также считаем важным наращивание сотрудничества в гуманитарном, экологическом и экономическом измерениях, в частности в области туризма, где Республика Таджикистан выступила с инициативой стать региональным координатором в этой сфере. Другой не менее актуальной, вызывающей озабоченность проблемы представляются глобальное потепление климата с его экологическими и социальными последствиями. Одним из ключевых моментов этих процессов бесспорно является интенсивное таяние ледников. По прогнозам специалистов, глобальное потепление климата вскоре приведет к потере основной массы ледовых образований. Только за последние десятилетия ледники Таджикистана потеряли более 1/3 своего объема. История Центральной Азии знает, к чему привело попустительство в отношении использования природных ресурсов, предопределив фактическую гибель Аральского моря. Мы не должны допустить исчезновения ледников, являющихся источником жизни в этом обширном регионе. В связи с этим мы возлагаем большую надежду на поддержку серии предложений Республики Таджикистан о необходимости создания Международного фонда сохранения ледников, который мог бы объединить усилия стран региона и международного сообщества в этом стратегическом важном секторе. Еще одно ключевое направление – это сотрудничество стран, участвующих в социально-экономической сфере, создание высокоразвитой транспортной энергетической инфраструктуры. Как вам известно, в документе принципов регулирующих отношения между государствами членами парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ подчеркнута убежденность в том, что рациональный и справедливый миропорядок должен базироваться на укреплении взаимного доверия и добрососедства, на установлении подлинных партнерских отношений. Однако в последнее время идут негативные тенденции, которые, на наш взгляд, осознанно направлены на игнорирование основополагающих принципов, которые государства-члены парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ обязались руководствоваться в своих отношениях. Думаю, что настало время обратить пристальное внимание на ситуацию в Центральной Азии и сказать об этом откровенно. Обстановка в регионе с точки зрения стабильности и безопасности сегодня далеко от идеальной. При этом хотел бы обратить ваше внимание на сложное положение, в котором находится Республика Таджикистан, вследствие затруднения движения товаров, транзита электроэнергии, транспортных средств, вызванного своенравной политикой некоторых наших соседей. Мы рассчитываем на декларативная политика, идущая вразрез с целью принципа парламентской ассамблеи ОБСЕ, получит должную оценку и будут выработаны коллективные меры по его предотвращению в будущем. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, sir, for your speech. Before giving our next speaker the floor, I want to tell you that the election closes, the voting closes in 2 minutes. So if anybody who is here in the room has forgotten to vote, please go and do so now. We have 2 minutes left. At 11 o'clock sharp, it's going to be closed. Thank you. And now the next speaker is going to be Mr. Gegamian from Armenia, to be followed by Mrs. Vilja Aleknaite Abramikene.
Уважаемые коллеги, прежде всего хотелось выразить благодарность наблюдательной миссии ОБСЕ, которая дала очень объективную оценку выборам в парламент Армении, состоявшимся 6 мая текущего года. Да, был прав докладчик господин Ксавьер Франсуа де Донеа, когда сказал, что администрация президента Армении Сержа Саркисяна приложила все усилия, чтобы выборы прошли на конкурентной, демократичной основе. Увы, демократический поступь армянского государства сильно раздражает наших соседей. Иначе чем объяснить тот факт, что спустя всего лишь месяц после блестяще проведенных выборов в Национальное собрание начались массированные военные диверсии и непрекращающийся снайперский обстрел территорий как Нагорно-Карабахской республики, так и Республики Армения. Более того, позавчера, когда мы здесь заседали, очередной снайперской пулей погиб военнослужащий вооруженных сил Армении, не Нагорного Карабаха, от пули снайпера. И спустя 2 часа после гибели армянского воина на армянской территории мы слышим интервью вице-спикера парламента Азербайджана господина Зиафета Аскерова, который говорит, что Минская группа ОБСЕ посещает регион в качестве туристов. Более того, он называет Минскую группу ОБСЕ мертвой организацией. Стало быть, президенты США, России и Франции не из Лос-Кабоса выступили с совместным заявлением, а с подземного царства Аид, ибо мертвые организации мертвые дают признаки жизни только с подземного царства. Чем же обусловлена эта безнаказанность азербайджанских властей? Наверное, тем, что ОБСЕ ПАСы закрыли глаза на армянофобские высказывания президента Азербайджана, который 2 месяца назад на заседании Евронест объявил армян фашистами, причем депутатов, сидящих в том зале. Более того, за 2 месяца до этого главным врагом Азербайджана было названо всемирное армянство. Если к этому добавить, что в 2011 году в августе начальник управления президента Азербайджана героизировал откровенного убийцу Рамиля Сафарова, убившего армянского военнослужащего, который спал и находился в Будапеште на совместных учениях в рамках НАТО-партнерства во имя мира. Отсюда и понятна безнаказанность. Удивляет то, что действия азербайджанских властей поощряются турецким руководством. Не далее, как позавчера, министр иностранных дел Давутоглу сказал, что пока не будет территориальная целостность Азербайджана, не будет установлены отношения между Турцией и Арменией. В конце одна ремарка. Независимая Карабахская республика никогда не была в составе независимого Азербайджана. Она объявила о своей независимости в рамках законов бывшего СССР, благодаря которым 14 государств сегодня представлены в этом зале. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Mrs. Vilja Aleknaite-Abramikiene, to be followed by Mr. Vlatko Georgiev. Mrs. Aleknaite-Abramikiene, do you have the floor?
Dear Madam President, dear colleagues, as a rapporteur of the First General Committee, I should be speaking of the threats that rise out from the lack of transparency in the area of arms control. However, situation is no better in the area of law and order. During the debates here in Monaco, we have witnessed what happens when offices of law enforcement structures and criminal groups unite together and act without punishment following the schemes of illegal appropriation from the state budget. We have witnessed what political consequences fall upon the member states when their law enforcement systems obey political wishes of the rulers. And we have also seen that democracy is degrading because of corruption and abuse of law and deviation from justice. There is a threat that societies, especially in young democracies, will be disappointed of the declared rule of law, declared but not practiced. Because very often, even too often, what they really see is the rule of dirty money inside societies and international relations. Therefore, I suggest that during one of the future sessions of the OSCE, we should organize a special debate on these issues. I cannot think of a single state where corruption would reinforce its security and foster progress. It's always the other way around. Therefore, OSCE, while realizing its comprehensive approach to security, should seek that law enforcement structures in member states would service their citizens and promote democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Aleknaite-Abramikiene. And now I give the floor to Vladimir Georgiev from Macedonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, dear delegates, I would like to speak a little bit about the Macedonian membership in NATO and the violation of the interim accord by the Hellenic Republic, by Greece. As we all know, dear colleagues, 2 months ago there was a NATO summit in Chicago, and Macedonia was not admitted as a member of NATO because the Greeks were vetoing that, and because Greece has a problem with the name of Macedonia. The problem is that this problem exists for 20 years, and we are vetoed for membership in NATO, and we are stopped to be a member of the European Union. For 3 consecutive years, for 3 consecutive years, we have a recommendation to start negotiations with the European Union for the Macedonian membership in the European Union. We've fulfilled all our duties, but the problem is the Greek veto. Ladies and gentlemen, a year ago, there was a verdict. There was a verdict by the International Court of Justice in Hague that has voted and decided 15-1. 15-1. The International Court of Justice in Hague decided that Greece vetoed the Macedonian membership in NATO in 2008 in Bucharest during the summit, and that was not in accordance with the international agreement between Macedonia and Greece, where it is clearly stated that Greece should not stop the Macedonian membership in the international organizations. Once again, the vote was 15-1 among the judges, and there was one Greek judge who was in favor of the Greek side. So we have in our documents in the OSCE, in Council of Europe, in UN, in EU, in NATO, in all these organizations, we have the principle of rule of law. But where is the rule of law when Greece needs to comply with the international law and the agreements that they have signed? They're not applying that to Macedonia. And sadly, just as in 2008, again, Greece has vetoed Macedonian membership in NATO, again in Chicago. The whole issue is in a standstill. So we hope that Greece will finally comply with its international obligations, just as it needs to be in the financial sector. It needs to be held accountable and to the court rulings when it comes to international relations. Macedonia deserves and proved and fulfilled the membership criteria for NATO and also opening the talks of the EU, but we have an ongoing problem. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I hope that next year we'll have a different situation, but the prospects at the moment are not likely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I now give the floor to Madame Muradova from Azerbaijan, to be followed by Madame Phelan from Ireland, who is going to be the last speaker in our general debate. Madame Muradova, you have the floor.
Спасибо. Уважаемые коллеги, завершается очередная сессия ОБСЕ и принята декларация, содержащаяся очень ценные идеи. Превращаясь в реальность, они внесут особый вклад в дело сохранения, обеспечения безопасности и укрепления сотрудничества в регионе ОБСЕ. Меняется мир, меняются проблемы, и ответственность нашей организации и государства-участники все более ясно осознают, что общая ответственность за нашу общую судьбу – единственный путь решения многих проблем, которые были озвучены здесь. Безопасность каждого государства связана с безопасностью других. Только в условиях неделимой безопасности можно обеспечить права человека, достичь прогресса и мира. Наша организация – это та организация, где ложь и агрессия неуместны, где в этой организации главным принципом является взаимоуважение, взаимопонимание и сотрудничество. Я хотела говорить совсем о другом. Я хотела говорить о тех ценностях, которые существуют в нашей организации. Однако коллега из Армении выступил с такой агрессией, такими нападками на Азербайджан. И хотела бы напомнить, что в Дубровнике на осенней сессии все мы вместе обсуждали главный вопрос решения Нагорно-Карабахского конфликта. И были выслушаны мнения сопредседателей Минской группы. И несколько раз во всех документах говорится о том, что азербайджанская территория, азербайджанские земли были оккупированы. Это всеобщеизвестная истина. Однако та агрессия, которая сегодня лилась, это, естественно, ложь. Мы не хотим такой ложи, мы не хотим такой агрессии. Весенняя сессия, которая проводилась в Батуми, вы еще раз убедились в том, что Южный Кавказ имеет большой потенциал. Южный Кавказ сегодня считается регионом конфликта. Однако в 2014 году, когда вы приедете в Баку, и в Баку будет проводиться летняя сессия ОБСЕ, вы еще раз убедитесь в том, что Азербайджан – это та страна, которая призывает к миру, к безопасности, хочет прекрасного прогресса в регионе. Мы не за войны, мы за мирное решение данной проблемы. И то, что говорит Гигамян, депутат, коллега, уважаемый коллега из Армении, говорит о том, что армянский солдат убит на азербайджанской земле, задается вопрос, что он делал, этот армянский солдат, на азербайджанской земле? Почему же эти снайперы, армянские снайперы, убивают азербайджанских детей? Много. Взаимные обвинения ведет не к решению, а наоборот обострению данного конфликта. Уважаемые коллеги, я уверена, что с помощью международных организаций, которые руководствуются международными принципами международного права, будет решен этот конфликт. Потому что Азербайджан – это страна, которая призывает к миру, безопасности, к сотрудничеству. И мы несколько раз говорили, и опять говорим, после освобождения наших территорий, азербайджанских территорий, мы протянем руку и Армении, так как мы страна сильная, экономически развитая, и поможем армянским своим соседям, чтобы их жизнь также была прекрасной. Спасибо.
Thank you very much, Madam Muradova. And now, as the last speaker in the general debate, I ask on Mrs. Fallon from Ireland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for your indulgence. And I too would like to thank my Norwegian colleague, Mr. Chowdhury, and also the Turkish delegation for raising the issues of the conflict in Syria. They spoke about the conflict in general, but I want to be much more specific. And I want to call on this forum here to condemn Syria for the use of children as human shields in the conflict. I believe personally that the use of children in this way is reprehensible. I think it goes against all of the values, particularly of these states and particularly of Ireland, as children are the most vulnerable in our society and they do not have the responsibility in this conflict. So I would like to call on the forum here to condemn Syria for the use of children as human shields. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fallon, for your words. And now we come to the last 2 points of the order of the day, which is, first of all, our farewell and his speech from our outgoing President Petros Eftimiou and the announcement of the results of the votes. And I think it would be nice if these last 2 points would be chaired by Mr. Bilorus, whose last day as Vice President it is today. And therefore, I ask him to come and preside these 2 points. Thank you.
Okay.
It's the last day of my function as the Vice President of this international organization. I spent with you about 15 years, and I hope I will extend cooperation with you more if I'm successful. In October, we have parliamentary election in Ukraine. I thank you so much for moral support of my country and decision taken by this session, stimulating the government, authority, executive power of Ukraine to fulfill all international obligation in order to stop deterioration of democratic process in my country. Dear colleagues and friends, we have Mr. Peter Petros Eftimiou, our friend, our president among us, and I wish to give the floor to Mr. Oliver Spencer to speak on Mr. Eftimiou case. Thank you.
Thank you. Does this work? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my privilege to introduce Petros Epthemiou, our friend and a great leader of this assembly. Although he is no longer with us as a member of Parliament, he will always be with us as our friend, and all of the good work that he has done will always be with this assembly. So Petros, we thank you for all the great things you've done. We wish you a great future, and I would like to present on behalf of the assembly a small gift, a token of our appreciation and gratitude.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
I'm sure it's not the Pandora's box. Dear colleagues, dear friends, I cannot hide it that I'm very moved. Because for me, and I'm sure that for all of us, politics is not an issue of mind or personal ambition. Politics for me and for all of you is a matter of the heart. It's a matter of values, core values of life, as is democracy, freedom, equality, everything that lays in our history of societies. I mean, I'm a French when I'm thinking of liberté, égalité, fraternité. I'm an American when I'm thinking of the Declaration of Independence. I'm one of you in each revolution for national sovereignty or for democratic values and freedoms in our society. So for me, politics was my life. My life was also a devotion to values. That's why the 8 years that I served this assembly were for me part of my life as I served my country, Greece. For example, when I fought for democracy, because I have had the destiny, Greece, Portugal, and Spain, to be the only countries in the West in which we have had totalitarian regimes. And for us, in the West, as so many in the East, democracy was the way to breathe, the way to exist as persons with dignity that only democracy defines and guarantees for each person. So that's why I think that this organization deserves our devotion. And we have to work hard as we do in order this organization to be more effective. Because we know very well that we are on an era of globalization. The problems are global, so the solutions are also global. And we know very well that even United Nations do not reflect the new architecture of power of the world. We don't have the infrastructure for a security system for the planet, and OSCE is the second largest organization comparing to the UN. And we have the North America, the whole of the Europe and Asia with us, and we have the only instrument to provide security, cooperation, human rights, and democracy to our societies. So I think that working in this organization, and especially in the Parliamentary Assembly, is something that contributes to, first of all, the peace and freedom and democracy. And I think that we have to try here to perform with our best of friendship, confidence, to build confidence between us, not to permit backslides in our governments, in our parliaments, within ourselves. Because in Dubrovnik, the Armenians and the Azeris, we made a very positive step. Why not to improve that step? Why to have backslides? The same happens in this area. To each conflict area is the parliamentarians that we provide relations of confidence, and we fill the gap, we bridge. We do not separate each other. And I think that working closer with the executive branch of the organization, with Vienna, working closer with ODIHR, and keeping our pride of the elected people, that we represent our peoples. We, the Parliamentary Assembly, we can always be the initiator, the generator of new ideas, of goals that maybe for the governments are more reluctant or more hesitant to tackle. Dear colleagues, for me, what I know and what I have in my heart is that for 8 years with you, I am now more confident that the genuine values of freedom and democracy are the values that deserve to drive our lives. And I do believe that this era of crisis, when we have in our societies, sometimes in Europe, the smell of a Weimar democracy, when we all feel a kind of even of destruction, it is up to us, parliamentarians, up to us here in the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, not to incline to this tension, to go back to our national agendas, to go back with xenophobia, to not to trust each other, but to work on the values that I think are irreplaceable. It's liberté, égalité, fraternité. It's that all humans are equal. I don't know, but what I know, it's the only condition to be a human being is democracy and the dignity that comes out through the genuine democratic values of the state of law. So I hope that always we as parliamentarians and we as Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE will be in the front of this fight, in the front line of this fight for democracy, for human values, for the dignity of the human kind and each human personally. It was a pride for me to be with you, to share those 8 years of common activities, and I'm sure that we'll find each other again. Maybe again in the Parliament, nobody knows in politics this cycle, how it works, but always I'll be with you as friend. I'll be with you sharing the same values that 8 years now it was our common field. And I thank you all. I thank you all for your confidence, your trust, and I hope that everybody will recognize that I did everything. If I did mistakes, it is all mine. If I did good things, it was ours. And also, I have to thank our Secretariat in Copenhagen, starting from Spencer Oliver, and to each one, I do not name everybody else because I do not like to forget some of you. It's a small but very effective team. And I would like to thank you personally, all of you, for your friendship and for your confidence. Thank you.
Dear colleagues and friends, fellow parliamentarians, permit me on your behalf to express our gratitude and the best wishes to our President, Mr. Eftimio, for his special contribution to the success of our international organization, and to wish him the future success in his professional and human destiny. Thank you, Mr. Eftimio. Now, the next point we have to be discussed and decided is announcement of the results of the elections. The situation now is our Commission is in very intensive work, and we will have results of the elections in 10 minutes. 15? In 15 minutes. So the only possible way is to suspend our session for 15 minutes, I understand.
Okay.
11:45 sharp. We should be here inside.
Thank you. It was here.
When in America I studied one very serious problem. They say to be happy, be happy. For the first.
You too. Yeah, and stay friends. Have it in mind.
So, you're happy with Ukraine?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
That is a very strong support.
In the Dutch newspaper, yeah, in the newspapers it was outlined very well.
And we wish you well for the elections.
Yes.
Руся, Іра, десь з першого ряду отак. На флаг вийти, Іра.
Ірочка, ти підійди сюди.
Зараз нам підійде. Іра, з першого ряду отак, щоб на флаг. Русь, зніми на. Іра, зніми. Так, щоб на флаг, на флаг. Yes.
I think, from being the man who made the most helpful point of order yesterday, you're about to become the man who's totally confused the procedure.
No, I'm not concerned.
No, it's very helpful.
If someone says Slark's going to go on being on the
I've heard nothing about that.
But if it happens, I shall make a point of order.
Yes, but that's clear.
Which one on your stick?
Oh, it was a fantastic one. It was about the Ukrainians. It was just irritable enough. It was very reasonable, but just irritable enough.
The oral stuff.
Yes, we can have a fight too, it said. Subtext. It was fantastic.
Не знімає?